Thank you so much again, and thank you so much for speaking with us so early in the morning your time. We really do appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. I still have I'm having my orange juice.
Thank you. Very excited to speak with you today. My name's Amy. So the first question I want to ask you is actually in reference to a video that was shared with OnlySP recently from yourself, in which you describe the soundtrack for Telling Lies as scoring the player's experience. Was this your belief from the start of the process, or did other elements such as character development also influence the work?
Oh, character development and story is everything, Amy. I mean, I think I'm used to scoring linear film and TV, and the difference there is that with Telling Lies, it's a very intimate experience because you're sifting through hundreds of fragmented video clips and conversations, and you're only getting one side of the conversation, which is really unusual. So you're seeing things that you're not meant to really see. You're sort of prying on privacy and intimate conversations. So there's a difference with composing to reflect and enhance the on-screen action, which you normally get in film and television, for example. I mean, sometimes even games. Versus here, it's much more atmospheric and it's deliberately dissonant, and we're exposing the subtext and the bigger picture. You're scoring the player's experience and an understanding of what's going on rather than the on-screen action. And I think that can be a much more potent thing in allowing the player to get to the heart of the characters. So scoring for the characters was everything, Amy.
Fabulous, thank you. To speak to that a little bit more, and you mentioned it briefly just then, Telling Lies is a narrative that very much needs to feel both intimate and public at the same time.
Yeah.
So how did you craft a score that creates such a duplicitous atmosphere?
Oh gosh. Okay. So in terms of the process, I created, the only person I was dealing with was Sam Barlow, the designer and the director, and we didn't have any other people in the equation. So that was really great in terms of communication and getting to the heart of getting inside Sam's mind, which is quite something. So we started off by creating a musical mood board, drawing on a variety of influences. There are a lot of film influences and inspiration for the game and for the music, such as Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation, Tinker Tailor's Soldier Spy for me, Sex, Lies and Videotape and Shame for Sam, and lots of noir and modern classical musical references. But we're taking all those we were listening to a lot of music, creating lots of playlists to listen to. He'd share music with me, I'd share music with him, and I was writing a piece of music, a theme for each character, and that theme had to represent the personality of each character. And as human beings, we're very complex. We are one thing to our families, we're one thing to our friends, we're one thing to our partners or boyfriends, girlfriends. And so we have lots of different aspects and facets, to our we're almost schizophrenic in that regard. And each piece of music had to reflect all these sort of duplicitous, as you say, this duality, the external character that we present to the world of ourselves, and then which you find in the main loop of the music, of the theme, and then as you dig deeper into the game, you unravel this hidden loop as you delve into the character of a musical theme, and that unveils a hidden side, the real personality coming through in the character. So Sam and I would go through lots of references, and And we listened to so much music and watched so many films, which was great. I just saw it soak into me, and then I threw it all away and discarded it, because we wanted to create something really unique score-wise, a unique sound world for the game that was very moody and atmospheric. So that was the thinking behind that. That's we and also we didn't want to write hours and hours of music. We didn't feel there was a need to, because in that regard, the game is like a film. Well, I mean, it is FMV, but we're looking at over 10 hours worth of footage. Sort of 8 to 10 hours worth of film material for the player to go through, and we didn't want 8 to 10 hours of music. It would just be too much. And also because it's very rich and nuanced with detail. There's so much dialogue happening, and there's so much to observe in the details of what's happening on screen, that we thought we didn't want a full-on score, but when we do have music, we want it to have an impact and for it to enhance the atmosphere as well as the characters. So so that was quite an interesting sort of decision to make, and so as a result, the score is very considered. Every note that is there has a reason to be there in the music, and because the game is so intimate, you're looking at conversations, you're looking at human beings and their relationships. And I mean, yes, there's a lot of dialogue, and we're sort of having to work around that dialogue and not intrude so much, because the dialogue is the most important thing. Like when someone's not speaking on screen, there's a scene where you're actually watching someone sleeping for a few minutes, and nothing, and you think nothing's going on. But when a character's listening to the other side of the conversation and you don't know what the other person's saying, you're looking for clues and hidden details, and you're looking at their faces and the expressions that they make. And so that's very detailed and nuanced, and you think nothing's going on, but actually there's a lot being given away by the character on screen when they're not talking. So we wanted that to reflect with the music as well, and we wanted the music to be very for the score to be quite intimate and warm and real. And so that's why I use a lot of electronic elements, electronics and acoustic elements in my music. And with this, I just wanted it to be pure and visceral and edgy, and really connect with the emotional heart of the story and the characters' personalities. So that's why we went for an orchestra, and to create this intimate, warm sound that was really real.
You discuss how the music enhances these nuances of the film and the acting and what we see on screen. But in that same video shared with OnlySP, you mentioned creating the score from notes without necessarily having seen much of the actual footage.
Yeah.
Would you have written the scores differently had you actually seen some of these film elements first?
Yeah, good question, Amy. Absolutely. And normally when I write for film, I mean, there are several ways and several processes, but writing for film, you get given the visuals, and you get given the images, and that informs you in a very different way creatively when you're writing to picture. So if I'd seen mood boards of the game, for example, of a sort of normal traditional game, you get to see the images and the graphics, and just to give you a rough idea. And I'm very visually inspired, so I look at something and I'll go, yep, I know what to do here, because the images are telling me so much. I'm reading so much into it. But here, and that was quite a challenge for me on this, because I got given a script that was like several hundred pages long, and that's quite a a lot to take on board. You know, it's
Mm.
like writing the music to a play or a book. So I'm left a lot to my imagination, and so I had to. So that was a challenge writing. It forced me to be creative in a different way, just writing from my imagination and not writing from visual images. But in many ways, it was also very freeing and liberating. It gave me, I could just use my imagination, which could just run riot. But we did create, I got so many notes from Sam, and he's very good at coming up with very obscure, bizarre visual analogies, sort of abstract analogies that really make me, that they inspired me in themselves. So for each character, I'd get loads of character notes, and Sam had, even if it's not in the game or you don't hear it, Sam had created a whole life history for each character. You know, you knew what they like to eat and what films they like to watch and what they did as a child, and their relationships with their families. And he created the whole backstory for each person, and he'd send me these notes, and so it really helped me, because I like to get totally immersed in each character and inhabit each character, so I get inside their skin, and that's the way I feel that I can be true to them as a person and be really authentic in the music that I'm writing, fits that human being, like a glove.
Thank you so much. It's really interesting to hear. Speaking more to Sam, sorry, just quickly for my own knowledge, when did you come on board with the project? How long between release have you been working on Telling Lies?
Let me think. I came on board when before he'd signed his contract with Annapurna. So I was working on it for about a year and a half, on and off. And then, in fact, I finished scoring the game. I had to write the music before they'd actually done the filming.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a bit weird. So I had no visuals to work from. I didn't even see what they had filmed. And one of the reasons why he wanted the music before the filming was to help him it would sort of help him with the filming, because he had that in his playing, and it helped with the casting as well. So it was like I was writing the music, the theme for a character, and then when I saw who they had cast in that role, it was, oh wow, this is amazing. It just fits perfectly. It was like bringing a 3D image to this person that I'd been imagining in my mind for months and months. So that was really strange. And then, a lot of it was the development side. And then when it came to I think they filmed for about 6 weeks, and spread out over a couple of shoots. And it was quite a complex shoot, actually, because they were filming both sides of the conversation at the same time with lots of different cameras. And so technically it was quite a challenge for the huge film production team. And then when they had filmed everything, the game engine had already been written by Furious Bee, and they've been working on that for a long time. And so it was a case of cleaning up the material, editing it all, and then inserting it into the game, which was a relatively fast process compared to the at least a couple of years of development we'd had. And of course, writing the script took a very long time for Sam. So yeah, I was on board for about 2 years, but 2.5 years in total, but actually working on it for about a year and a half. And the challenge for me, one of the things that I wasn't used to, is that when I work on a film and TV project, I'm on it from start to finish, and it's quite an intense period. So I might work on a feature film for anything from 2 months to 4 or 5 months, and or TV series, you know, where I'm on board for anything from 6 weeks to 4 or 5 months continuously. But here I had to stop, start quite a lot. So I'd really get into it, get into writing, get into the world of the game in my mind, creatively for about 3-4 weeks. And then I'd have to take a break for a couple of months. So I was working on other projects as well, because, you know, Sam wasn't ready, and, you know, things were taking time to develop. So getting out of it and then coming back into the game a few times was quite sort of creatively, it can sort of break your headspace. So that took me a little bit of while to adjust to getting back into the game. But it, you know, once I'm in that headspace, it was fine.
What a surreal experience for you then to be able to watch that all come to life, which is quite different to traditional game development. So that's a fascinating insight.
Yeah,
fascinating.
Yeah, it was. No, I mean, I really relished every moment of working on it, because for me it was a kind of a dream project. Sam asked me to. He actually reached out to me on Twitter and said, "This stranger saying, would you like to write the music for an interactive movie?" And I love projects that reach out to people, reach new audiences, in an edgy, tell stories, because it's all about storytelling. For me, I'm telling stories through music, and it was you know, I love this sort of hybrid. I mean, I think the future of entertainment is between rich, complex storytelling in games and also film, and bringing the two together. And I know that there have been a lot of opinions, good or bad, about FMV games. They had, you know, there were some made in the past. I won't mention any names, but you know, and some have been more successful than others. But suddenly we've seen a couple come out in the last week, like Flavorworks Erica, which is a superb game in its own right, and this is so different. And it's amazing that you can have 2 FMV games right at this moment in time, and they're both so different. You know, I'm very inspired by things like Netflix's Bandersnatch episode of Black Mirror, and it's almost like a choose your own adventure game, you know, and you're making binary choices almost. But here Sam's created something that's so utterly unique, where you are part of that experience, and in terms of you are the agent. Sorry, my cat's coming to say hello.
I was thinking that's definitely a cat.
He's pestering me. It's breakfast time. So where was I? Sorry, Oscar's distracted me.
That's all right. The creation of something so different.
Yeah. So Sam's created this. He's created this sort of a unique form of storytelling where it's not about necessarily getting to the end result and watching all the video clips. You can watch 3 or 4 hours of it, and you could just focus on one aspect of the relationship aspect, or you could focus on the sleuthing detective aspect of it, you know, and the political thriller side of it. So that every time you play the game, you get a different experience out of it. And you don't have to feel that you need to get through all the video scenes. You can skip to the ending. You know, there are several different permutations, lots of different permutations. So, you know, that's the beauty of telling lies.
Speaking more to that, in terms of, telling lies as a game, as you mentioned, it allows players to craft their own version of the truth for these characters, craft their own experience. As someone that has worked a lot on film, how did you find the experience of creating a story that needed to remain true, regardless of how it played out for the player at that given moment?
How did I what? Gosh, that's a deep question for o'clock in the morning, Amy. How did I remain true to the experience?
True to the characters and the
Yeah.
experience, because what the players may see will differ, and their version of the characters will seem different in their own playthroughs based on what they've seen. So how did the music reflect that in terms of creating something that was in many ways captured every version of the truth?
Yeah, well, I think it was a case of taking on board the whole script, and immersing myself in the characters so much that I knew the world intimately, but I knew the characters so intimately that the challenge was to then distill each personality down to a single piece of music. And
Yep.
so the tone is quite intimate and cerebral, and it needed to complement the complex Machiavellian plot and all the different narrative threads that were going on. So picking up the essence of each character coupled with their in-depth backstory that Sam was feeding me, that was really important. And for instance, like the characters, they're not quite, I can't even tell you the names of the characters, because that would be a mild spoiler, because when you find out someone's name, you go, oh, that's revealing, that opens up a whole
Wow.
treasure of video clips. But the characters are not who they say they are. Everyone's deceiving everyone subconsciously and consciously. So there are layers of manipulation and these hidden dark secrets when you're delving into the human psyche. So for instance, there's one character, there's one where the surface loop, the exterior music that you hear when that character comes on screen, is like this perverse, intoxicating waltz. There's a lot of dancing going on between these two characters, and the character is like a courtesan, where they're deflecting and diverting and playing a game with this other character all the time. And you have a lot of intimacy and whispered conversations, but then and that character is very much in control and dominant and controlling. But then when you delve deeper into as the music's playing and you're delving deeper into the scene, the music might change, because it's reflecting the fact that you've delved a little bit deeper and you've opened something up. I think, oh wow, and you get this hidden loop. And I remember this brief that Sam gave me. He said, I want it to feel like joyless sex, Right, okay, that's an interesting analogy. And so, but what he was trying to say is that everything comes, you're in this fantasy world and with all these intimate whispered conversations, and then suddenly you're brought back to this back to reality, the real world, and it's slightly clumsy and clunky, and there's no more illusion and fantasy going on. And so that aspect of the music of the theme had to come out, so that was interesting way of working. So I think, and once the themes for the characters had been written in my computer, using mock-ups and demos and samples, I then brought in the London Contemporary Orchestra, and that was another way of being true to the game, because I wanted real acoustic instruments, and I brought in the LCO, the London Contemporary Orchestra, who are incredibly collaborative, and they're very different to most other orchestras, because they are used to working in a very sort of experimental way. So I've got a degree in mathematics going way back, and I've got this thing about chaos and order. Sort of, I have this. I love the beauty of numbers, and in terms of when I'm writing music, there's a lot of balance to the way I construct music, and with this, it helped a lot, because as I said before, the music's very precise and considered and detailed, but then I wanted to bring in this chaos into the music, and to do that, so when we got to the recording sessions, we'd record with the orchestra the music as I had written it and as how Sam had heard it, absolutely everything perfect and precise. And then we tried something really different, which was to add an edge of chaos and randomness. So we did a bit of semi-improvising with the orchestra, which is very unusual. You don't normally do that when you're recording a film score or even a game score. And so they had the music as it was written, and then we tried very unusual experimental extended techniques with the string players and the other musicians to so that when the music's in the game, even though you're hearing the same theme, you might have slight variations of that theme in a visceral sort of semi-improvised way. So I wanted to sort of shake that up and create a fresh element of the playing when we were in the recording session, and hopefully that comes. So when you're like, for example, I have 6 different intros on one theme, so that when you hear it, it's never that repetitive. It's never that repeated in the game. There's always an air of variation.
Wow, that's such a different approach. So
Yeah.
well done, thank you. Jumping back to something you mentioned a bit earlier, you said that Sam reached out to you. Was there a particular reason that he decided to reach out to you for this project? What was it about you that he knew would help create the atmosphere for the narrative he wanted to tell?
Well, I think that he'd heard a couple of pieces, a little bit of music that I'd written for another film, and he felt that it would fit in with the sound world, fit in with the atmosphere of the game that he was going for. But I think he also wanted someone who came from a scoring for linear background, scoring for film and TV, because I think one obvious reason is because this is an interactive movie, for want of a better word, but he wanted someone with rich cinematic storytelling abilities. I mean, I got this. I became BAFTA Breakthrough Brit about 3-4 years ago, and because of that, so there was a lot of noise on the internet, and he heard about because they also choose people in the games industry as well, and so he was quite in tune. They pick 18 people from games and film and TV, and for every year, it's sort of people who are breaking through on the cusp of the work that they're doing. And I think, and I've always wanted, I actually started off writing music for games many years ago. That's how I started in the industry. And but then after a couple of years, I was doing sound effects and music and so on for all sorts of different games. And then my career digressed, and for the last 20 years I've been writing film and TV. So in a funny kind of way, I've sort of come full circle. And so, and I love these sort of edgy projects where you're engaging audiences in a different way. So for me, this is like the perfect combination of all the skills and experience that I've had, with film and non-linear as well. So it was, it was a dream project, and I think it's been working with Sam has been incredible, because he's such a unique individual, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. He's so super bright and in depth about everything, and not just in depth, but is just very intelligent and unique in his thinking and how he's constructed this story, and his thinking behind it is just utterly fascinating.
Well, congratulations on the Breakthrough BAFTA. Absolutely incredible, and wonderful to hear how your trajectory has changed over your career and that you end up here now.
Thanks.
It's such an absolute pleasure. One last question for me, something a bit more less thought-provoking, I suppose. But what has been your favourite composition from the soundtrack, and why?
I think, they're all my babies, you know. I love all these characters, but I did enjoy writing the theme tune because it's really different. I wanted to create something very edgy, and I really enjoyed writing the theme tune. It's the time signature's unusual. It just, when I set about it, it was the last piece of music to be written on the game.
Wow.
And I felt that I couldn't write the theme until I'd written all the other music. So I came to it last, and in a funny kind of way, I was dreading it because I thought, this is a big task. You know, writing the theme tune for any project is the biggest challenge, because you only get one crack at it. In a way, because I lived with the script for such a long time, I felt that I could do the game justice by encapsulating the whole world of the game in a single piece of music. And I wanted it to be to represent all the qualities of the game. So there's a lot of dissonance, there are violent, unsettling qualities to it. And there's a real visceral edginess. So even the way the bow hits the string, and that's one reason why it was so great for the London Contemporary Orchestra to come in, because the characters are very what you're seeing, the scenes between them are so private and intimate and warm. The music, I wanted the actual players I wanted it to be that, so that you could actually hear the relationship between the player and their instrument, for that to be raw and edgy and visceral. And so the theme tune encapsulates that. You have this gratiness of the instruments that are being played, and you can actually hear that. And so hopefully that makes you connect with the characters a lot more, and the game a lot more. It's quite powerful and dramatic, and it takes the viewer on a journey, and it takes on all these neo-noir influences as well. It's sort of all the musical inspiration and the film inspiration. It's like going back to an old 70s spy covert intelligent movie. So it's got an unusual time signature which keeps the viewer on edge. It's driving, it's energetic and propulsive, and we've got some of in the middle section of the title theme, we've got some weird sort of spectral scrubbing of extended violin techniques going on. I just love it. It's trying to cram all these ideas into one single piece of music.
Wow. You are so incredibly passionate and so thoughtful, and it's been an absolute pleasure and honor to speak with you.
Thanks. Really appreciate it.
No, and offered such fascinating insight into your thought processes, the development of the game as well. So very, very grateful for your time this morning. Thank you so much.
Cheers, much appreciated. Thanks for having me on the video.